87% of your lifetime investment growth hides in the last few years of the journey. That is a statistical fact, but it is also a psychological trap. It means that for the vast majority of your investing life, you're going to feel like you are standing still. You are going to put money in, watch the markets wiggle, seeing inflation eat away at your purchasing power, and you are going to wonder if it is even worth it. Almost everyone gives up in the first decade because of this specific feeling. You start compounding, the line on the chart barely moves, and you quietly decide that the system is broken or that it only works for people who started rich. Today, I want to show you what really happens in those early months and early years. I want to take you inside the math and the psychology of the boring middle. We're going to break down the 4 invisible stages of wealth so that you do not quit right before the growth curve starts to bend. This is not a highlight reel. This is the anatomy of the struggle that precedes the snowball. Meet Harry. Harry works in a noisy customer support center. He wears a headset for 40 hours a week, apologizing to strangers for shipping delays he didn't cause. He makes about $43,400 a year before tax. After federal and state deductions, his paycheck lands at $2,619 every month. Let's look at his reality. Rent for his apartment eats $1,153. Groceries, transport, the internet bill, and the occasional takeout meal chew through another $800. Most months, Harry ends with maybe $50 or $60 sitting in his checking account. He's tired, he's frustrated, and he feels like he is running on a hamster wheel that is slowly picking up speed. If you feel like that is your life, stay with me, because Harry does not get a huge promotion in this story. He does not get a mystery inheritance from a distant relative. The only thing that changes is how he treats the boring, painful early stage of compounding. A few months before his 27th birthday, Harry is riding the bus to work and listening to an audio version of The Psychology of Money by Morgan Housel. One line sticks in his head and refuses to leave. It's the idea that most legendary investor results come from a tiny number of years at the very end of their lives where compounding finally explodes. Harry hears that and thinks, if the magic years are at the end, then what I do at the beginning must be less about results and more about survival. It's about staying in the game long enough for the math to wake up. That same week, he stumbles onto another book, The Simple Path to Wealth by J.L. Collins. Different author, same drumbeat. Start early, stay in the game, ignore the noise. Harry realizes that none of this is about picking the perfect stock or timing the bottom of the recession. It's about living long enough financially to let the math work. So Harry tries something that on paper looks almost laughable. He opens a basic investing account that lets him buy a simple S&P 500 index fund. Instead of promising himself some heroic amount that he can't afford, he sets up a tiny automatic buy of $37 on the 15th of every month. He picks the 15th because that is right after his rent clears and the rest of his bills settle. $37. That's it. That was the number he could stare at without feeling panic in his chest. Here's what really happens next, and this is the part most people never see clearly because nobody makes YouTube videos about it. Month 1, Harry checks his account almost every day. He sees $37 in some change. The market wiggles a little. One day it's up $1, another day it's down $3. Emotionally, it feels pointless. He does the math in his head and realizes he could have kept that money and ordered takeout twice, and his life would feel exactly the same. By month 3, the pattern is the same. He has just over $112 invested. The news is screaming about inflation and interest rates and recessions and rallies. His balance dances between $105 and $119. Harry feels like he's walking up a down escalator. This is the first hidden stage of compounding, the boredom stage. The math is working, but it is invisible. You're pushing a heavy rock, but it hasn't started rolling yet. Most people stop here. They cancel the automatic deposit. They tell themselves they'll come back when they can invest a real amount, maybe when they get a raise or pay off the car. But Harry makes one quiet decision. He decides that for the first 12 months, the account is not allowed to make him feel anything. It's just a bill. It's like rent. It's like the electric bill. It goes out and he does not debate it. Around month 6, something small shifts. The account passes $250 for the first time. That's still not life-changing money. You can't retire on $250. But for Harry, it's the first time in his adult life that his net worth graph has a line that moves in one direction. It's a tiny psychological hook. Then, month 7 punches him in the face. His car starts making a grinding noise. He takes it to the shop, and the estimate comes in at $489. Old Harry, the Harry from a year ago, would have emptied the little investment account and killed the compounding experiment right there. He would have told himself that he tried, but life got in the way. New Harry does something different. He looks at that investment account not as a piggy bank to be raided, but as a generator that hasn't started yet. He decides the money is untouchable. He takes a deep breath, pulls 2 extra shifts at the call center, and sells an old gaming console on Marketplace for $142. He covers the repair without touching the investments. This is the second stage of compounding, the identity stage. You stop seeing the account as extra cash and start seeing it as seed corn. You realize that if you eat your seeds, you will never have a harvest. The catch is simple. The early deposits do almost nothing at first and almost everything later, but only if you leave them alone. By the end of year 1, Harry has made 12 tiny deposits of $37. That is $444 of his own cash. With normal market swings, his account shows something like $469. He's up about $25. That's it. An entire year of patience, an entire year of saying no to small treats, and the profit barely pays for one grocery run. If a friend looked over his shoulder at that moment, they would probably laugh. All that discipline for $25? But this is where compounding quietly shifts from money to mindset. In year 2, Harry does one important thing. He does not try to double his contribution overnight. He just adds one more little lever. He makes a rule that every time he gets a pay raise, even a tiny cost of living adjustment, or every time he works overtime, he nudges the monthly invest amount up by $5 or $7. By the end of that year, the monthly buy has crept from $37 to $53. That tiny, boring change does more for his future wealth than any fancy stock pick ever will. By month 24, Harry has deposited just over $1,100 of his own money. Thanks to a mix of market gains and reinvested dividends, the account shows roughly $1,229. The gain still looks small, just over $100, but something huge has changed in the physics of his money. The gap between what he put in and what the account shows is no longer pocket change. It's starting to feel like the investments are working without him. This is the third stage, the separation stage. Your money starts to feel like a different worker in the household. It shows up even when you're tired. It works on weekends. It works when you're sleeping. Around this time, Harry reads The Richest Man in Babylon by George Clason. It's a little book from nearly a century ago, obsessed with one simple rule: pay yourself first. Clason didn't have trading apps or index funds, but the principle is identical. Take a slice of every single dollar you earn and send it to your future self before anyone else gets paid. Harry smiles, because almost by accident, he's been doing exactly that for 2 years. The best part of compounding doesn't even start until later. And this is the truth nobody tells you when you first begin. Imagine Harry keeps leaning in. He keeps nudging his monthly investment by small, odd amounts. $53 becomes $61, then $69. A tax refund arrives one spring, and instead of blowing it, he throws an extra $217 into the account. He doesn't see every episode of his favorite series because he picks up a side gig. He brings lunch from home more often than not. Life still has treats, but they're chosen treats, not automatic habits. Fast forward to year 5. Harry is 31 now. The call center still hums, but he's moved to a slightly better position, training new hires for a bit more pay. His monthly contribution has climbed to $112. Nothing insane. His total deposits over 5 years add up to roughly $5,300. Thanks to the market doing its slow, often annoying thing, the account shows just under $6,400. Here's the key that unlocks the next level. Only about $1,000 of that balance is growth. But that $1,000 didn't cost Harry any extra work. It appeared because time and returns teamed up. At this point, a lot of people would still shrug. 5 years of discipline and the account is only 4 figures? But compounding is just starting to stretch its legs. What that means for Harry is this. The dollars he invested in year 1 might double once by his mid-30s, and again by his mid-40s, and maybe again by his mid-50s if he stays invested. The dollars he invests in year 15 won't have time for all those doublings. So the earlier dollars, even though they were smaller, end up doing more heavy lifting. They're the veterans of his army. This leads us to the part of compounding that almost no one feels emotionally prepared for. Around year 8 or 9, the curve finally does the thing you see in textbooks. The line stops being gentle and starts bending vertically upwards. Harry has been investing for close to a decade. His total deposits might be something like $11,000. But the account could be showing $15,000 or $16,000. The gap is no longer a grocery trip. It's a used car. It's half a year of rent. One day, Harry wakes up, checks the account, and realizes something terrifying and beautiful. The account grew more last month than he put in. That is the moment compounding stops being an idea and starts being a lived experience. Here is the twist. The math did not change that month. The market did not suddenly become kinder. What changed is that Harry finally crossed the invisible line where the returns on his money are bigger than the money he adds from his labor. This is the real heart of compounding, the 4th stage, the handoff. In this stage, your job shifts from pushing the snowball uphill to steering it as it rolls down. Harry stops obsessing over how to squeeze a few extra dollars into the account. Instead, he protects the habits that got him here. He keeps his lifestyle a step behind his income. When friends upgrade apartments to look rich, Harry lets himself move 1 year later. When someone jokes that he is cheap, he grins and changes the subject because he knows he's building a machine that will eventually pay for everything. Remember those books he read? The Simple Path to Wealth warned that the hardest part is not getting rich, it's staying invested when everyone around you feels richer than you in the short term. The Psychology of Money hammered the same idea in a different way. Wealth is what you don't see. Flashy spending hides compounding. Quiet investing amplifies it. By year 10 or 11, Harry sees something almost surreal. In a strong market year, his account might grow by $3,000 or $4,000 without any heroic contributions. That's more than he used to save across entire years in his early 20s. The tiny $37 deposits from the beginning are now pulling their weight alongside the bigger later ones. If you zoom out even further, something else becomes clear. The first few years of compounding felt like nothing. The middle years felt promising. The later years feel unfairly generous, as if the universe finally flipped a switch in your favor. So, what does this mean for you? If you're sitting here wondering whether your first $100 or $500 or $50 a month is worth the trouble, you need to understand the mission. First, understand that the early months are not about the money, they're about identity. You are teaching your brain that you are the kind of person who plants money in the future instead of burning it in the present. Even if your account could disappear tomorrow, that identity change would still be priceless. Second, accept that the numbers will disappoint you at the beginning. That's not a sign you're doing it wrong. That's a sign you're at the only place compounding can start. You cannot skip the flat part of the curve. You have to walk it. Third, protect the system more than the amount. If all you can do is $29 a month, then guard that $29 like it's sacred. When your income rises, nudge it up. When life punches you in the face, find a way to keep the system alive, even if you have to pause growth for a couple of months. Do not kill the machine. Finally, remember Harry at 3 milestones. At month 3, when the account was barely over $100 and he felt foolish, that was the moment most people quit. At year 5, when the gains were small but real and he finally had a graph that sloped in one direction, that was the moment he could see compounding waking up. At year 10, when the growth from the investments beat his contributions, that was the moment the game flipped and his past self started working harder than his present self. This is what really happens when you start compounding. It's slow, it's boring, it's emotionally confusing. Then it's suddenly obvious and powerful and almost unstoppable. You won't feel the magic in month 1. You might not even feel it in year 3. But if you can survive the boredom stage, hold the line through the identity stage, and defend your habits long enough to reach the handoff, the math will do something wild. One day, you'll wake up, open your account, and realize your money has a life of its own. Most people spend their whole lives trying to get rich quickly, and they stay broke forever. The secret is to get rich slowly so you can stay rich forever. Start the $37. Start the $50. Just start, and let the boring middle do its work.